Hopefully I don't violate again. Let's turn the music off. Let's get into it, folks. All right. Last week, exactly 1 week ago, I was in the middle of doing a live talking about, it was President Trump Part 2 was the title of that live. Those of you who are on Instagram, Rumble, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, y'all all saw this, but TikTok kicked me off in the middle of my live. I don't know why. I don't know exactly what I said. I read the community guidelines for TikTok and I couldn't figure out what I said. They said it was some form of misinformation, which I don't even believe to be a real thing, but they do, and it's their platform, so they kicked me off. I don't know what I said, but it doesn't matter. We're going to get into what we need to talk about here today, and y'all see what the topic is at hand. The topic is we're going to talk about the winners since Donald Trump has won, who actually won, because Donald Trump was able to win the election. Someone said TikTok is a liberal app. Okay, that explains it. They probably are, but I was talking about politics, and I was talking about Harris and Trump. And I got to be careful how I say things. I got to be careful how I language things on these apps now, especially with TikTok. TikTok is, as far as my live streams, TikTok is the largest audience when I go live. So I want to keep this TikTok audience. And by the way, those of y'all who are on TikTok, make sure you go follow me on Instagram at Dre Baldwin. Follow me on YouTube. Just look up my name, Dre Baldwin. Follow me on LinkedIn. Follow me on Facebook. Follow me on X. And follow me on Rumble. So just in case any more shenanigans happen over with TikTok, y'all know where to find me in other places. So just in case that happens, y'all should know where to find me. If you're watching me on TikTok, follow me on the other apps. Actually, in my bio, there should be a link to my Instagram. Make sure you, and my YouTube, go follow me in those places just in case anything happens. So anyway, what I want to talk about here today are the people who won because Donald Trump won. And there's a list of people here who won, and I'm going to lay out who these people are. And I don't mean individuals. Some of them are individuals, but mostly I mean as a general group, who are the people who won because Donald Trump won. I'm going to explain who they are, why they won, and what it's going to mean for all of us moving forward. All right. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year pro athlete, author of 35 books. I've done 4 TEDx talks. I created this brand called Work on Your Game. Our job over here is to help you perform at your highest level, do so consistently, and produce more results. We work with entrepreneurs, salespeople, people who want to be entrepreneurs, business professionals. If you have a team of people who need to be had that fire lit under their asses and they need to get moving and get to doing what they need to do at their highest level, I'm the person that you bring in to do that. That's what I was doing this week. That's the reason why I wasn't live on Monday and Tuesday, at least on the platforms in which I wasn't suspended. But now we're back here to talk about what we need to talk about. And by the way, any of you has a question or comment on anything that I say while I am speaking, just leave it in the comments. I will address it when I'm done. If you happen to be on TikTok, you might want to hold your comment until after I get through the material, because a lot of notifications come through and I can't always scroll all the way up to the top to see them on TikTok. TikTok right now, we got 242 people watching on TikTok. The other platforms, not as many. So y'all can leave comments whenever. But if you're on TikTok, I would suggest you hold your comments till the end. So anyway, first one. Who is the first winner because Donald Trump won? I would say the MAGA flag bearers. What is a MAGA flag bearer? These are the people who were saying MAGA, the people who were walking around wearing the red Donald Trump hats, the people who were waving the Donald Trump flags. Even before this election cycle even got as deep as it did, y'all were standing tall on the MAGA message even before it was popular. And it's not even popular now. That's the wrong language. Let me say that a different way. You were standing tall on the MAGA thing even when people were trashing you and giving you dirty looks for walking around with a MAGA hat on. I live in Miami, Florida. You don't see a lot of people walking around, at least not in the area that I live. You don't see a lot of people walking around with a MAGA hat on. The area that I live, actually, I was going to say that it tends to lean more left, but I don't think that's the case, actually. The more people that I meet, I don't think that's actually the case. But I saw a guy, I remember, like, this is probably in the middle of the summer. It was like July, June. And this guy was standing in the middle of a really busy intersection, not far from where I'm at right now. He had one of those big flags, one of those big Trump flags. And he was just standing there on the corner, just waving the flag back and forth. And people are driving by, and some people are beeping the horn at him and acknowledging him and smiling at him and waving at him. And other people, I saw people do this because I was walking my son. I saw people who would ride by, roll their window down, get his attention and give him the middle finger because he was holding up the Trump flag. And these are the kind of people I'm talking about. The people who were standing tall on backing and supporting Trump, even when you were getting middle fingers and you were getting cussed out and people didn't like you and you might lose your job and none of your friends want to talk to you and your family members were uninviting you from Thanksgiving dinner. I hear people claiming that that's what they're doing on social media. the people who did that, I got to show respect to. I got to show respect to those. I got to give a salute to those people, because not necessarily because of Donald Trump, not necessarily because of MAGA itself. The reason why I got to give a salute to those people is because I have a lot of respect for people who are willing to stand on something even when it's not popular. And when everybody is trashing you and everybody is talking down on you and everybody's talking every negative thing they can say about you, you still stood tall on it. I respect that. And somebody who is representing, or what's the word, backing, let's say, the left in the United States, period, I don't think that you're necessarily lying if you're backing, let's say, Harris or Obama or whoever the candidate was, or whatever the left is representing. I don't think you're lying if you're a fan of those things. Or you're walking around with a Kamala Harris hat on, or a T-shirt, or you went to a rally, or you're posting all over social media that you're going to vote for Harris. All good, but the thing is, it doesn't take any balls to do that. It doesn't take any balls to support the left when Donald Trump is in politics. It doesn't take any balls to do that. And again, I don't think you're lying. Doesn't mean that you can't do it. But do you get a salute for doing that? No, you don't. You don't get a salute for doing that. It's like picking the favorite when two teams are playing an NBA championship. You remember when the Cavaliers were playing the Warriors in the NBA Finals in 2016, the one that the Warriors blew the 3-1 lead and the Cavs won? Anyone claiming that the Warriors are going to win, okay, that's cool, but I mean, what are you really proving? They were already the favorite. So you saying that they're going to win isn't adding anything to the conversation, because everybody's saying that they're going to win. It's betting on the underdog and actually being right. That's when you actually prove something. And Donald Trump was looked at as the underdog. He wasn't really the underdog. Kamala Harris, I don't believe, was a very strong candidate, but Donald Trump was looked at as the underdog simply because the mainstream media was completely against him the entire time, and they indoctrinated a lot of people to be against him. So those of you who stood tall on MAGA, even when you were getting trashed for it, and even to this day, there are people still getting trashed for standing tall on MAGA. I got to give a salute to those people for doing that, because, again, that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of balls, and a lot of people these days have no courage and no balls, and they will only follow what is popular and what is accepted. And if they happen to believe or agree with something that is not popular, they do it really, really quietly. So those of you who are doing it loudly and standing on it and walking around with the MAGA hat on, and you were waving the Trump flag, and you're wearing the Trump T-shirts, if he even has a T-shirt, and you were getting on social media and saying, I'm standing behind Trump and he's the one that is going to win, and you were saying that like in the summer of this year, or you were saying it even back in 2020, if you didn't like how that election went, if you were doing that even then, I got to show respect to you. All right, we have to show respect to those people. They won because they were standing on it before it was popular, and now we see the aftermath, what ended up happening. So that's the first winner. MAGA winners, people who've been standing tall representing Trump even when it wasn't the thing. Number two winner based on Donald Trump winning this election is mainstream media. Now, I just talked about the mainstream media, how the mainstream media has set a whole bunch of people up to be indoctrinated against MAGA and Donald Trump, but at the same time, they won. The mainstream media won with Donald Trump winning. They won in some ways and they lost in other ways. So the first thing is, I don't know if y'all saw this, but the reports are coming out that MSNBC, which is a heavily left, they lean all the way to the left, as far left as you can go. MSNBC is over there. They have been losing, viewers or subscribers or whatever it is that however they count their numbers. They've been losing like 50% dip ever since the outcome of the election. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. One reason is because the election is over. So a lot of mainstream media outlets are just going to get less attention because they get the bulk of their attention during the election season. So it makes sense they lost some attention because of that. But another reason is, and people are alluding to this, is that MSNBC was so heavily pushing to support the Harris-Walz ticket and then ended up losing. Well, what can MSNBC offer us if they can't talk about that? They have nothing else to offer. I guess the only thing they can do at this point forward is trash Trump, which is what all the mainstream media is going to do. But here's the reason why they're winners. All right, here's the reason why mainstream media is going to win, because there are half the country, we can say roughly half the country did vote against Trump. They voted for the Harris ticket. And guess what? I would say of the half of the people who voted against Trump, so let's say it was about 70 million people, right, voted against Trump. I would say a good, what number would I put this at? And in percentage, I would say at least half of them. I think half is a fair number. I would say half of those 70 million people, that comes to about 35 million. They want to hear people trashing Donald Trump. Yes, MSDNC. I heard somebody say that the other day. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, people have been saying that for a while. And there are people who want to hear Trump get trashed. They want to take Every single thing he does, because I don't know if y'all been following on social media, he's been putting out these little 2-minute videos talking about what he's going to do with the Department of Education, and he's naming all these people who he's going to appoint or he's going to nominate to be in his cabinet and all these things. He's basically just throwing a bunch of stuff out there to let people know what he's going to do now that he has become the president-elect. And what they're going to do is take every single thing Trump does, everything that he says, everything that anyone on his team does or says, and they're going to find a way to trash it and make it look bad. And there's at least 35 million people in the United States of America who want to hear that. So does the mainstream media win in this process? Yes, they do. And people have been saying, I've been saying this since back in the 2016 campaign, that the mainstream media actually wins when Trump is around because he gives them material to talk about. And people are much more activated by negative energy than they are by positive energy. What I mean then is if Harris had won the election, the mainstream media would not be able to generate nearly as much energy and attention as they will with Trump winning, because with Trump winning, people are going to tune in to hate watch anything that has to do with Donald Trump. Anything that has to do with Trump, they're going to listen to it because they want to hear him get trashed. So TV shows like The View. And I remember Donald Trump Jr., he was on The View. I believe it was during the first administration of Donald Trump Sr. And he went on The View. He had a book coming out. And I never really heard Donald Trump Jr. talk. And I actually liked the way that he talked. He actually carried himself very well. He handled himself well. And he said he was interviewed after he got interviewed on The View. He went on a different radio show. And he said, well, you know what it is. You know, when you go on a show like that, I'm a conservative. Obviously, I'm Donald Trump's son. They're leaning very left. I know I'm going to get hit. I know they're going to attack me, but I was ready for it. I was ready to deal with it. And he actually handled them very well. And y'all know on The View, it was like 4 or 5 other women sitting around you, and you're sitting there in the middle, and they're just coming at you. They're just attacking you from every angle. He actually handled them very well. And after I listened to that, I said, this guy actually has some intelligence, because before that, I generally had a negative view, I would say, of people who are sons of really known and really famous or notably successful people, because I'm like, this guy didn't have to do anything to earn his position, thinking of Donald Trump Jr. But when I heard him talk, I said, this guy actually has some intelligence. He actually knows how to articulate himself pretty well. And I went and read his book. I forget the name of that book. Let me find the name of that book of Trump Jr. that I read. This is a few years ago. And see if I can find it. I'll tell you all in a second. But anyway, when he was on that show, one of the things that he said, or after he was on the show, he said, well, the show is called Triggered, is the name of not the show, the book. The name of the book is Triggered. When did this book come out? If I can find it. It came out in 2019, right? So this was right during the first Trump administration. And one of the things that he said was, well, you got to remember, the show is called The View. And that means there's only one view. They don't have different perspectives. There's one view on that show. You can't come on that show and have a different view. You won't be able to be on the show. It's called The View. There's only one perspective, one way of looking at things. A show like The View is going to do better ratings, I believe, with Trump as the winner than if Harris had been the winner. Now, there are some caveats to that, and I'm going to get to those caveats in 1 second. I'm going to talk about it while I'm on the second point, the mainstream media winning. So the mainstream media does win because people are going to tune in just to hear them trash Trump, because there are people out there who have the cognitive dissonance that they don't want to accept what happened in this election. They don't want to accept that there are more than half of the country that has supported and voted for Donald Trump. Now, here's the caveat for the mainstream media, and that they are starting to lose a grip on people's attention. They're starting to lose the trust of the people. And this is not more endemic than what happened in the election, because in 2016, it made sense. In 2016, it made sense that people didn't think Trump had a chance to win and couldn't vote for him because all the trashing that the mainstream media did of him. Then he won, and it surprised a lot of people. They're like, wait a minute, how is that possible? I explained that. My red pill moment was in 2016 when he won that election, because I didn't think he was going to win. I didn't think there was any way that half the country would vote for someone who was such a terrible person, because that's the view that I had, because I was consuming mostly mainstream people and people who had the same views as the mainstream people. But I took the red pill after 2016 happened, because I said that doesn't make sense. It doesn't match my understanding of reality. That must mean I'm taking in too much of the same information. I started listening to other people who had different views, and I realized that I was the one who had been fooled. Most people don't have that type of critical thinking skill. They don't have that level of humility to accept that maybe they're the one who was wrong and to start getting different information. Most people instead will just keep believing what they want to believe and basically deny the reality that is right there in front of their face. As Jeff Bezos said when he was talking to his team at the Washington Post, after he told them that we're not going to endorse a presidential candidate, one of the things that Jeff Bezos said is that reality is an undefeated opponent. All right, reality is undefeated. You cannot keep going against reality and think you're going to win. And the reality he was explaining was that people trust the mainstream media and the news industry, et cetera, less than they ever have. They trust them less than they trust Congress. So Congress is heavily not trusted, and the mainstream media is heavily not trusted. And Jeff Bezos, who owns, by the way, Jeff Bezos is an Amazon guy. He actually owns the Washington Post. He was letting his team know, the writers at the Washington Post, we need to start earning back the trust of the public, because if the public doesn't trust that we're giving them the news objectively and accurately, then they're not going to read us, and therefore we'll have no business, and therefore you will have no job. So you should probably listen to what Jeff Bezos has to say. Seems like a pretty smart guy. The challenge for the mainstream media, even though, yes, there will be people who will tune into them just to hear them bash Trump for the next 4 years. Challenge is not 2016 anymore. Challenge is 2024. And over the last 8 years, something has happened. Over the last 8 years, more and more people have started turning to alternative sources for their information. How many of you do not watch the news at all? Put the word me in the chat if you don't watch the news at all. You don't tune into CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, MSDNC, Fox News. You don't turn to any news network, no matter what they support. Put the word me in the chat if you do not watch the news at all. And see, this was not the situation in 2016. All right, a bunch of you. So I see a bunch of you on TikTok commentating, and Prudence over there on IG. Many of us did pay attention to the news back in 2016, whether we were following it on the internet or we actually turned on the TV to watch them. We would listen to what they had to say, because many of us, if you're over the age of, let's say you're over the age of 35, we all grew up in an era where all the news was in the newspaper or on TV. That's where you got the news. There was nowhere else to get the news but the newspaper or TV. But nowadays, all of you know, I mean, look at these apps that we're on right now. Nowadays, you can get your news from social media. If you follow the right people on social media, you can know pretty much everything that's going on and everything that you need to know without ever turning on a television or opening a newspaper. If you have the right sources. Now, some people could be out there telling you some nonsense too. Let's be clear. You can still get fooled on the internet, but you can get good information by just listening to podcasts, following some people on whatever one of these apps, whether YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, X. Following a few people on those apps, they're basically telling you everything that's going on. And they are more objective and more rational and more logical than what the news is. And I explained this a few weeks ago when I did a live on why but journalism is falling apart. The reason why journalism is dying is because the companies that employ journalists tell them what to do. So I have a little bit of grace, a little bit of empathy for the journalists out there who work for mainstream publications, because their bosses tell them what they can do and what they can't do. And y'all have to understand that. So when I see a person who calls themselves a journalist doing something that's not journalism, I will call them out on it. But at the same time, I understand why they're doing it, because they have a job. A journalist is a job. If you're employed by a newspaper and the newspaper says you can report this, but you can't report that, well, what's the journalist supposed to do? All right, you either do what your boss tells you or you get fired. And look, everybody has bills. People got kids to take care of and daycare to pay for, and all that stuff. They got to pay for eggs. They got to pay for groceries. And if your boss says you got to do something that even goes against the principles that you were taught, you have two choices: leave your job and figure out how to make money, or just do whatever the boss says. So I understand why journalism is going left the way it's going. When I say left, I don't mean liberals. I mean left, like not the way it's supposed to go, because the companies who run the companies who employ these journalists are telling them, hey, you can't report objectively on this guy. You got to slant it a little bit. You got to slant it a little bit to support this one and slant it a little bit to trash that one. And this is the reason why journalism is dying. The problem is that worked, I would say, to an extent up through 2016. The problem is it doesn't work as well anymore, because people are more informed. So even though this term misinformation has become more popular, disinformation has become more popular, fake news, Trump pretty much made that one up. See, all these, what's the other things they say? Conspiracy theories, these terms that people use to try to discredit any information that they don't like. Even though those terms have become more popular these days, the fact of the matter is the everyday person has access to more information now than we ever did. And we have more options to get information than we have ever had. That doesn't mean people have actually gotten smarter. I think in general, people have gotten dumber because people's are giving less attention to getting the full information than we used to. Back in the days, again, if you're over the age of 35, you remember sitting at at least how I grew up, we sat at the dinner table and the entire news program was 30 minutes. And you watched the whole thing. You watched all the commercials because you couldn't skip them. These days, people get their information in 30 seconds. And I believe that when people give less time and attention to something, they tend to have a looser grip on what's real versus what's not. So it's easier to misinform, or I don't even like using that word. It's easier to deceive people these days because people only take the quick thing. You give them a 30-second burst of something and they just accept that as true. Whereas back in the day, you had to get 30 minutes, which requires you to actually think. These days, people think less, even though we have information, more access to information. So it's a double-edged sword here. But I do believe overall the mainstream media does win simply because Donald Trump evokes a certain level of energy out of people, whether you support him or you don't, or you're against him. He evokes a certain level of energy out of people that no candidate we've ever seen does. And whoever comes after him, and whether it's Vance or anybody else from the Republican side who we know about, nobody's going to evoke this type of response from people that he does. And definitely not anybody on the left, because the left tends to have people liking them, the mainstream, whereas the right tends to have people disliking them. And I think that landscape is going to change a little bit over time. Let's move on to number 3. And we're talking here today about all the winners from the MAGA victory, the Donald Trump victory in the 2024 election. Number 3 winner is the race hustler. All right, the race hustler has actually won by Donald Trump winning. Now, what is a race hustler? I did a whole live on race hustlers probably like 3-4 weeks ago. A race hustler is a person, and this is a specific type of person. This is a person who takes everything that happens, everything that they see and hear, and they create some angle to make it about race, even if the subject is not about race. That's a race hustler. And there's another piece to being a race hustler that's important. But let me repeat what I just said to make sure you got it. Race hustler is a person who takes every situation, even if it has nothing to do with race on its surface, and they figure out a way to make it about race. And then this is the important part. What makes them a hustler is the fact that they do this as part of their career, as part of their business model. They make money by doing this. That's what makes them a race hustler, the fact that they make money doing it. So when I call a person a race hustler, I don't necessarily mean this as an insult. A race hustler is actually a compliment in some ways because they're doing this as a business. So there's some people who are full-time race hustlers. I'll name a few of them. Nicole Hannah-Jones. She has me blocked on X because I responded to a couple of her race hustling posts, and I'm like, this is nonsense. What are you saying? It doesn't make any sense. She ended up blocking me because she couldn't really say anything back to me. There's a guy named Eli Mistal. He is a full-time race hustler. He does it as a career. Ibram X. Kendi, he wrote a book called How to Be an Anti-Racist. Some of you are familiar with that. He is a race hustler. He has me blocked on social media as well. You got some people who dabble in race hustling. They don't do it all the time, but they dip in and out. Jamel Hill dabbles in race hustling. She doesn't do it full-time, but she dabbles. This guy named Bakari Sellers, he's about an 80% race hustler. He's not all the way there, but he's a race hustler. I follow him on social media. I follow a few of these people. They're race hustlers. Someone said Dr. Umar Johnson. Umar Johnson is a race hustler. You are right. He is a race hustler. And Dr. Umar, about half the things that he says, I agree with him. About half the things he says, I believe he's race hustling. And I don't agree with the general concept of race hustling. So yes, Umar Johnson is a race hustler. He's a full-time race hustler. He's a skilled race hustler. See, some race hustlers are really good and they're really slick at what they do. And some of them are not really that good. This is another guy I follow on X. His name is Michael Harriot. And he's a skilled race hustler. He's skilled at it. The challenge with a lot of these race hustlers is that they can't do anything else. So the only thing they ever talk about is some form of race hustling, which makes it easy to spot them. And I end up calling these people out. And I follow some of these people. I follow some race hustlers on social media, not because I agree with them, because I want to hear what they're saying. So again, race hustling is not necessarily I don't mean it as a pejorative. I'm giving you a compliment because you're able to take anything that happens, make it about race, and then figure out a way to make money from it. That's a hustle. All right, that's a business model. And there's a whole bunch of race hustlers who are going to make more money now that Donald Trump won than they were making if Donald Trump had not won. So race hustling is a business opportunity. And if you pay attention, if you've been looking at my Instagram story for the last 2 days, I was traveling. And every time I'm in the airport, I always stop. If I have time, I always stop in the bookstore at airports. You know, airports always have bookstores. A lot of books get sold at airports because people need something to do on the plane. And those books that get written by the race hustlers that are about anything that has to do with race, and they can somehow, some way relate it to Donald Trump, MAGA, or the Republican Party, or this next 4 years of Republican administration, those books are coming out soon. I guarantee you by the beginning of 2025, you're going to see a whole bunch of books by race hustlers and race hustlers in training speaking about Donald Trump and whatever about him is going to affect people of other races in some negative way. And if they don't have a story, they will make one. This is the job of a race hustler. If you look at a situation and you can't find a racial angle, your job is to make a racial angle. That's the whole point. Another race hustler, Robin DiAngelo, she's a white race hustler. So you don't think all race hustlers are black people. Most of them are black, but Robin DiAngelo is a white race hustler. She's a white person who wrote a book called White Fragility. If you haven't read that book, you should get it. You should read it. And I'm telling you to go read the stuff that these people are saying. And the reason why I'm telling you to go read the stuff that these race hustlers are saying and see the things that they're doing is so that you understand when you come across people who have been influenced by race hustlers, it makes sense why they're saying what they're saying. So when I come across a person, I remember I was in this coaching mastermind a few years ago, and there was this white girl in there named Jess. And Jess was as white as a picket fence. She was from the Midwest part of the country. I'm not going to say what town, just in case somebody might know her. I'm not trying to out her personally, but she was as white as a picket fence. She was relatively young. She's probably 30, maybe under 30. And I remember one of the things that she said, and we were having this conversation about, what programs did we join or what products did we buy? And Jess, this picket fence white girl, she said, anytime I'm going to buy anything from a company, I want to look into who they are and what their values are. And I want to make sure that they are anti-racist. She said that word out of her mouth. And when she said that, that just caught my attention. Like, what? They want to make sure that they're anti-racist. What the hell is that? I never heard anybody say that. I never heard anybody say that before I do business with a company, I want to make sure that they're anti-racist. But she said that, and she wasn't joking. She was dead serious. And I said, this is what the race hustlers have done. They get these white people who are afraid of being called racist to buy into, instead of just not being racist. So you got racism over here. Over here is being racist. Over here is being, in the middle, you got just don't be racist. And over here you have anti-racist. This is what Ibram X. Kendi did. So this was the skill of Ibram X. Kendi in creating this whole concept of anti-racism, is that he said it directly in his book. That any of you read the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, put the word yes if you have read that book. Any of you have read the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi, put the word yes if you have read the book. If you have not read that book, even though Ibram X. Kendi is right now he's on a downfall because he's not a good leader. He is a good race hustler, but he got put into a leadership position that he had not earned. And he's looking bad. And that's one of the reasons why he blocked me on social media, even though I never even said anything to this guy. In the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, if you have not read it, go read it. Ibram X. Kendi says, first of all, one of the first things he says in the book is that it is not enough to just not be racist. You have to be an anti-racist. So you can't be in the middle. You can't be neutral. You got to be an anti-racist. So see, it's not enough to not like McDonald's. You got to be anti-McDonald's. Like you can't just not like McDonald's. You got to be anti-McDonald's. You're either positive McDonald's or you either love them or you hate them. You can't be in the middle. And this is what he said. He said, you cannot be in the middle on racism and not being racist. You must be anti-racist. That means you have to do everything that I'm going to subscribe for you to do in this book. This was genius. And again, I'm not a fan of Ibram X. Kendi. I think his work is garbage. However, the work that he did and the number that it did on the minds of a whole bunch of people was excellent. This was genius. I got to give him credit. I got to give him a compliment. I will criticize him and compliment him in the same breath. This was genius because what it did is it got a whole bunch of people to say, damn, I can't just not be racist. There are a whole bunch of white people who read that book and said, I'm not racist. I don't have a problem with black people. And even Max Kinney came along and said, well, if you're not racist, you're racist. He literally, read the book. I'm not lying. Any of you who read the book, please co-sign what I'm telling you here. He says this in his book. If you consider yourself to just not be racist, you are actually racist because by doing nothing, you are supporting racist systems and racist outcomes and racist people by just doing nothing. If you're not doing anything to solve the problem, you're part of the problem. This is a beautiful framing that he did. Beautiful framing. And this is the reason why that book sold as many copies as it did. And again, this is why Ibram Kendi is a race hustler as opposed to a race baiter. See, a race baiter is a person who just talks about race and makes everything about race, but they're not doing it as a business. They ain't making no money. But see, if you're making money from doing this, then you are a race hustler. So again, that hustler word is a compliment. Everybody catch what I'm saying here? And the race hustlers, there are more books coming. If you thought that was the end of it, no, this is just the start of it. All the race hustlers are writing their books right now to make money from selling books. And a book is not really the business. The business is to go do consulting gigs and speaking gigs based on being a race hustler, where you can teach other white people how to basically bow at your feet because you're black and tell and repent their sins of being racist just by being white. Robin DiAngelo does this as a career. If y'all haven't seen, has any of you seen the documentary by Matt Walsh called Am I Racist? So this guy named Matt Walsh, he works for, what's the company he's with? Is it the Daily Wire? I think it's the Daily Wire he's with, one of those companies over in Nashville. And Matt Walsh, he did one a couple of years ago called What is a Woman? If y'all didn't see that, it was hilarious. Y'all should go watch that one. And yeah, Daily Wire. Thank you, Rich. And he just made a new documentary called Am I Racist? Where he goes around and talks to a bunch of people who are in this race hustling business. And he basically gets them to explain on camera what their business is about. He does it by not saying that's what he's trying to do. He's basically making them look ridiculous. He gets them on camera. He got Robin DiAngelo in this documentary. He got her in it. And the way he did it was, first of all, she had a fee. To sit and speak with her, you had to pay her $15,000. He paid the $15,000 fee and then sat with her and had her explain her entire business of race hustling to him. Again, she didn't know what it was being used for, but she got the money. And then after it came out, the documentary came out, she put a post out on her blog or something saying, hey, he deceived me, et cetera, and I only gave the money to charity and all these things that she did. This is a peak race hustling. And the race hustle is about to eat really, really good with Donald Trump being president for another 4 years. Trust me. They would have ate anyway, but they're going to eat even more with Donald Trump being president for another 4 years. All right, let's move on. So another winner, as I said, are the race hustlers. The race hustlers are going to win because of that. And yes, he paid her $15,000 to talk to her in order to get her into that documentary. Now, next race hustler. Not race hustlers. The next winner, because Donald Trump won, Beyonce. All right, Beyonce won. Now you're like, Dre, what are you talking about? How did Beyonce win from Donald Trump winning? Let me tell you how. All right. Did y'all see that the last week or two in the candidates running against each other, the campaign is the word I'm looking for. Kamala Harris had a rally in Texas. I believe it was in Houston, which is the city that Beyonce is from, right? And the whole thing was, first of all, they used Beyonce twice during this campaign. The first one was during the Democratic National Convention, which was, I believe, in Chicago? I think it was in Chicago, whatever city it was in. The last night of the DNC, there were all these rumors that somebody really famous was going to show up and be there at the DNC. And everyone thought it was going to be Beyonce. So the last night of the DNC, everybody was excited, the people who were physically there and everybody who was watching on TV, because they thought it was going to be Beyonce who was going to show up and perform and basically co-sign Kamala as the next president of the United States. Beyonce did not show up, but a whole bunch of people watched the last night of the Democratic National Convention because they were expecting that it would be Beyonce, but she didn't show up. So they basically used her name for that one. But then this rally that Kamala had in Texas, which is in the last week of the campaign, Beyonce did show up. Now, according to reports, Beyonce got paid $10 million for that appearance. So let me continue. Beyonce got paid $10 million for this appearance, and it was announced Beyonce is going to be there. So this was confirmed. Beyonce showing up in Houston for this rally. First of all, this rally was in Texas, which is a red state, and it did stay red. Donald Trump won the state of Texas in this election. Secondly, Beyonce showed up, and all she did was talk for about 4 minutes. Beyonce talked for about 4 minutes. Any of you who can do math, Beyonce made $250,000 per minute for this appearance on behalf of Kamala Harris. Now, if that's not a win, I don't know what is. $250,000 per minute for this appearance on behalf of Kamala Harris. She did not perform a song, which would take about the same amount of time. Our song is about 4 minutes, right? She didn't perform any songs. She came out there and spoke and said, I'm not speaking as I don't know what she said, but I'm speaking as a mother. That's what Beyonce said. I'm speaking as a mother. And then she started talking about the reproductive freedom, reproductive rights, et cetera, et cetera. Someone answered me this question. How is Beyonce? Beyonce has 3 kids, right? She got 3 kids. Beyonce has 3 kids. Why is she coming out and supporting reproductive freedom? Has she terminated any pregnancies? What is she doing? That didn't make any sense. The fact that she's saying there, I'm speaking as a mother. Well, the whole point of the quote unquote reproductive freedom, which is actually abortion, we call it what it is. Wait a minute. Isn't that about not being a mother? Isn't that the whole point? Isn't the whole point of abortion to not have kids? Beyonce has 3 kids. So she said, I'm coming up there and speaking as a mother. That makes no sense. Or I guess the other angle is, well, I'm speaking as a mother because I believe 2 of Beyonce's kids are female, that, well, just in case my daughter wants to do that, then I want to make sure that she has the right to do so, which is a complete nonsense. The last I checked, Beyonce and her husband, Jay-Z, they live in California. All right. In California, you can do whatever you want to do. All right. There's nothing in California stopping it. Who's the governor of California? All right. What side is California on? California is a liberal state. Beyonce ain't got nothing to worry about. even though there are a whole lot of the state of California is actually very red as far as if you just looked at the map. But as far as how it votes, California has voted blue for a very long time. A lot of electoral votes in the state of California. What is Beyonce actually talking about? That made no sense. Logically, it made no sense. But guess what? People don't think logically. But Beyonce got paid $10 million to speak for 4 minutes. So whatever Beyonce is doing, I want that job. All right. So even though Kamala didn't win, I don't think Beyonce really cares. And as a matter of fact, I would go as far as to say whether Trump wins or Harris wins, how much is it affecting Beyonce? Somebody tell me how it's affecting Beyonce and Jay-Z who wins the election. I don't think it affects them that much. This is one of the mistakes of the Harris campaign. I'm going to do a whole live just on that. Oh, that's coming soon. I got a longer list for that than I have for, I'm looking at the list of people who lost because they supported Harris is more than 20 people. That's going to be a long live. That one's coming up. Might do that one tomorrow. But Beyonce won on this because it doesn't matter who wins. How is Beyonce hurt by anything that happens with Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? These people are above it. And this is one of the mistakes that the Harris campaign made. They kept rolling out all these celebrities, these people who are publicly noted for having a lot of money. Taylor Swift, Oprah Winfrey, Beyonce, and who are the other ones? Y'all can name the whole list of all these people. These people are not everyday people who are complaining about the cost of healthcare and the cost of groceries and the cost of gas and how much their bills are. These people don't have those problems. They don't have those problems. And the left has been doing this since 2008 with Obama. But it's 2024. They're still running the same playbook. So this is something that they're going to have to figure out over the next 4 years. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We'll get into that when I do a live, just talking about how the Democrats messed up this entire campaign. But let's continue. Who's another winner because Donald Trump won? Another winner because of Donald Trump's outcome are feminists. Feminists win because Donald Trump won. Now, again, this is another one that seems to be one way, but is actually another way. Now, a lot of feminists, if you ask them or you follow them or you believe the stuff that they say on the internet, a lot of them are really, really upset that Donald Trump won. Just like the mainstream media is upset that Donald Trump won. Just like a bunch of race hustlers are upset that Donald Trump won. No, they're upset because that's part of the show to get you to pay attention to them. Because if someone tells you that they're upset or angry or disappointed, you're going to listen to whatever they're going to say next to find out why are you upset? What are you upset about? What are you going to do about being upset? See, this is all part of the hustle. This is all part of the hustle to get your attention. This is just an attention game. The feminists claim that they're upset because Donald Trump won because it's going to reduce the rights of women and women are not going to have reproductive freedom and they can't kill their babies anymore or all the things that they claim they won't be able to do because of Donald Trump winning. Yet at the same time, a bunch of feminists, same thing I told you with the race hustlers, the books are on the way. All right, the books are being written right now. They're being printed. They're being bound. They're being shipped to the bookstores right now. There's a bunch of feminists who are going to have books that come out in the first quarter of 2025, actually in all of 2025, because he got 4 years, all talking about why feminism or women in general are under attack because of the presence of Donald Trump being in the White House for another 4 years. Guaranteed this is happening. Now, I am well versed on many of the race hustlers and the things that they do and have read their books. I have not read books of any feminists. I don't think I've read any feminists' books. If you know of a book written by a feminist, please put it in the one that you think is actually good. That when I say good, what I mean is informative about the way that the leaders of the feminism movement think. Put the name of that book in the comment section and I will add it to my library and make sure that I read it. But this is coming. So I don't know if y'all remember back in 2016 when Trump won. Actually, most of you probably do remember. If you live in a big city, you definitely do. That there was this. They had the Pussy Hat March. You remember this? These women wore these hats, these pink hats that were, I assume, they were supposed to be designed like the female genitalia, and they were hats. And a bunch of women put on these hats, these pink hats, and they did these marches or rallies, whatever you want to call it, in a bunch of big cities in America. They even did one down here in Miami. And Miami is not, the people don't get so super involved politically in things in Miami. So if they did it in Miami, I know they did it in the cities where, if any of you live in the city, I know they did it there in LA, Houston. I don't know about Vegas. Vegas is a little bit different. New York, Baltimore, Boston, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Detroit. I'm sure they did it in all these other towns as well. And are they going to do this all over again? I think I saw it was like the day after the election, that they were going to do this again, that they're going to do this march, this women's rights march. I don't know what they actually call this, but it's something along that line, women's rights march, to just march for, I don't know what they're marching for. What is the actual outcome of this? There is no outcome. The whole point is there are people out there who have no aim and no direction in their lives. So anything that sounds like, hey, here's something to do that can make you feel like you're a part of something, they'll go sign up for it. This is the reason why people join protests, not necessarily because they care about what they're protesting about or they believe they're actually going to change anything, just because it gives them something to do. So they don't feel like they're sitting around doing nothing. They just go outside and do nothing. All right, same thing. Anyway, let's move on. So we're talking here today about who is winning because Donald Trump won, because MAGA won. Number 6, objective and logical creators and journalists. Those are people like me. People who think logically, people who try to be objective and who are trying to actually get to the truth of things. They are going to win over this next 4 years. Actually, going to win moving forward, because what happened in this election was a referendum on how people consume their media and how people consume their information that we don't want to be lied to anymore. We want people who are at least trying to be objective. No human being can be completely objective, but we want to hear from people who are at least trying to be objective and trying to look at things objectively and are trying to get to the truth and are going to try to explain things in a balanced way, a fair and balanced way, even if you lean one direction or another. Like, even if I have a personal opinion on things, I'm still going to tell you, hey, here are the positives I can see on this side. Here are the positives I can see on this side. Here's why I think this side could work. Here's why I think this side could work. Those of you who have been following me for the last 2 months, at least, you saw me. I did a whole live on why Kamala Harris is going to win. And to this day on YouTube, I still get comments, people leaving comments on there like, you were wrong. This didn't age well. And I'm like, dummy, look at the other video. The other one was why Donald Trump is going to win. I can argue both sides of any conversation. And any critical thinker has the ability to do that. And these days, people are tired of being told what's happening when they're only getting half the story or pieces of the story, or they're getting a little fact out of the story and then it's mixed in with a whole bunch of opinion and then presents it as if it's the truth. All right, people are tired of that. All right, people don't want to hear that anymore. It's known as propaganda. When you take a little piece of fact, you mix in a whole bunch of opinion and you try to influence people with it, people don't want to hear that anymore. They want to hear from someone who's going to tell them the truth, or at least who is looking to get to the truth, at least trying to obtain the truth. That's what people want to hear these days. So anyone out there who is objective and logical in the way that you talk about things, you are going to win, because Trump is in office now, and it's not because of Trump. It's because the outcome of this election was another shock to the world, shock to the system, just like 2016 and now in 2024, that, all the stuff that we hear from the mainstream media, all these things that we have been indoctrinated to believe, clearly can't be true because it happened twice. If it happened once, that'd be one thing. If Harris had won this election, people could say that Trump winning the first time was some type of anomaly, a random thing that probably would never happen again, because he probably wasn't going to run again. But him winning twice, now it puts everything into a completely different perspective. That, what we are hearing in the mainstream may not be the whole story. Let me go get some more information and find out here. Because one time you could ignore it. Twice you can't ignore that. Can't ignore it twice. And that's what's going to open up. That's what's going to open up the space for others. And did y'all hear? I believe it's actually 2 people I heard say this. So it was Jen Psaki. You don't know who Jen Psaki is. She was the press secretary for the Biden. Yeah, was it for Biden? Yeah, Jen Psaki was the press secretary for Biden for like the first maybe half of his administration. And now they have the woman, Karine Jean-Pierre, I believe she's Haitian, black chick. And she's in there now. But before her was this woman, Jen Psaki. So this woman, Jen, she went and got a job in TV. I don't know what network she works with. Any of you know, just tell me what network Jen Psaki is. Is it MSNBC, ABC, one of those? So Jen Psaki said on TV, this was right after the election was decided for Trump. She said that, and I'm paraphrasing, that what the government may need to do, and she was strongly suggesting this, is crack down on all of these podcasts and independent creators who are spreading, and this is her language, she said, misinformation and false information out there to the world. And I'm like, bitch, what? She's the one, and her company, the company that she works for, they're the ones who are putting out the misinformation and the bad info. And she's saying that because she's a member of the mainstream media now, maybe we need to crack down on podcasts and everything happening on the internet, so that, and what she's really saying is, this is the quiet part that she didn't say out loud, was that we need to crack down on them so that we can go back to people only having a handful of sources of information like us in the mainstream media. This right here is one of the ways that people respond to cognitive dissonance. One of the ways that people respond to a change in the world, when something changes and shakes up their system, one of the things that people can do, I was just reading a blog post by Seth Godin. He was talking about this. One of the things that people do is deny it. They just deny that it happened. All right, this is not happening. Nobody's listening to podcasts. Nobody's listening to some random guy on TikTok. Nobody's listening to some random person on social media share things. Nobody's just subscribing to a YouTube channel and get all their information. That's one step. Is people just deny it, act like it's not happening. The next thing that people do when they realize that it is happening, that people are getting their information instead of from NBC, they're going to YouTube. Instead of going to MSNBC, they're going to TikTok. Instead of going to CBS, they're going to a podcast. See, when they realize that that's happening, the next step in the process is to try to not let it happen. They're going to try to smother it. Oh, well, maybe we need to crack down on podcasts. Maybe we need to crack down on social media. Maybe we need to crack down on TikTok. Maybe we need to crack down on YouTube. Maybe we need to crack down on these companies and make sure that they have rules when it comes to quote unquote misinformation, which is a nonsense term, or disinformation or false information, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if we're going to crack down on people on the internet doing it, we got to crack down on people in the mainstream doing it. I see. You can't have it both ways. And by the way, this is not going to happen, especially under a Trump administration. Under a Trump administration is actually going to get opened up even more, because remember what they did to Trump in 2021. After January 6th, what they do to Trump? All the social media platforms band together and kicked him off all on the same day at the same time. Remember that? So do you think a Trump administration is going to allow any quote unquote crackdown on social media platforms and podcasts? Of course not. That's not going to happen. And Jen Psaki knows this. She knows that's not going to happen. But she was floating it out there as a way of planting a seed in the mind of her audience that misinformation and bad information must be coming from the podcast and social media. That's the only way that Donald Trump could have possibly won. See, this is denialism. This is just acting like reality is not reality. And what did I tell you Jeff Bezos said to his people at the Washington Post? Reality is undefeated. You cannot keep fighting against reality. And this is what happens when people who have had a stronghold on people's minds realize that they no longer have that stronghold. All of a sudden, they, again, first act like it's not happening. Then they try to smother it and say, well, we shouldn't let these people talk. Now we're just not going to let you do anything. And it's nonsense. It's not going to happen, first of all. And all that's going to do, actually, she shouldn't have said that, because all it's going to do is make people go even more to those platforms and find out what is it about these platforms that has you so up in arms about shutting them down and reducing their ability to get their point across. Because that's really what it is. Anytime you see the powers that be trying to shut something down and shut someone down or not let that person get their message out, all it does is make critical thinkers, people like myself, it makes us curious. Okay, what is it about this person that has you so gung-ho about stopping them from talking? Let me go hear what they have to say. Because had you not mentioned them and tried to shut them down, I probably would have kept ignoring this individual. But because you keep trying to shut them down, now I'm going to go find out what they got to say. So when they kicked Trump off of social media in 2021, what it led to a lot of people doing is, okay, let's go hear what Trump has to say. Actually, we already knew what he had to say because he's been saying it a lot. But it led people to saying, okay, maybe there are alternative ways in the media. I said this immediately when they kicked him off in 2021. When we kicked him off in 2021, it wasn't so much that I was defending what he was saying, because I wasn't quite sure yet as far as the 2020 election. I think the 2024 election provides more evidence on his side. Let's just put it that way, without taking it any further than that. What happened in 2024 and what happened in 2016 makes for a stronger case for what Trump and his supporters said in 2020. All right. And I'll do a whole album on that at a later date. But when they try to suppress him and not let him talk, what I said to my audience after January 6, 2021, is that if they can do it to him, they will do it to you, because he's the president of the United States. At the time, he was still president. They band together and kick the president off social media. What do you think they'll do to you? They'll kick you off just as quickly as they kicked him off. And that's the thing that all of you need to be aware of. Thank you for the heart, Yuki over there on TikTok. They'll kick you off. All right. Same way TikTok kicked me off for a week because I said something, misinformation, whatever the hell that means. All right. They own these platforms and they'll kick you off. And the thing is, when they start trying to suppress things, all it does is make people curious. Why are you trying to suppress it? Why are you trying to stop it? What this person said. I'm a firm believer that whatever any of you refer to, or whatever platforms or the news refers to as quote unquote misinformation, I think you should just let it stay out there. Shout out to whoever helped me hit that goal. Everybody who's sending the gifts over on TikTok. I think you should let misinformation spread. Now, why is that? Why do I believe misinformation should spread? Because if it's actual misinformation, it will expose itself. See, if somebody's not good and their material is trash, you shouldn't try to suppress them and stop them from saying it. If somebody's telling a lie or they're not telling the truth, you shouldn't try to stop them from putting it out there. You should let them put it out there, because if it really is garbage, it will expose itself. When something's bad, it exposes itself. You don't have to stop it. Just let it go, and it'll expose itself, and everybody will see, damn, that's garbage, and it has to stop. You shouldn't try to stop it. Let it spread. And if something's true, it's going to be shown as true. And if something's a lie, eventually, all lies eventually get exposed. Y'all heard Cat Williams when he was on Shannon Sharp's podcast? All lies will be exposed. The thing about a lie is that it cannot exist in the light. A lie cannot exist in the light. A lie requires darkness. You got to keep people in the dark and not knowing things in order for a lie to continue sustaining. But when you bring the light out and the sun comes out, lies cannot live in the light. They got to go hide, and they get exposed. The truth can live in any light. The truth is always the truth. All right, that's the whole game. And this is what people have to accept, and what people have to, and people are starting to see this again as more objective and logical creators and journalists are coming out there. There's a guy whose name I cannot say on TikTok. I know I can't say his name on TikTok because I said his name once. I've recorded a video, and then we made clips. We clipped it out, and I put one of the clips of the video on TikTok on my feed, not a live stream, but on my feed. And I said in the video, I heard such and such say this, and it reminded me of whatever. And I went on talking about something else. I only just said the guy's name one time, and TikTok took my video down and said, your video is violating our community guidelines in terms of hate speech. That's what it said. Now, that guy is a guy that all of you know his name, and I'm using him as an example because it got me interested in him, because I had never paid any attention to this guy until they started kicking him off. Y'all know who I'm talking about, right? He's a half black, half white guy, has a bald head. He used to be a kickboxer. He lives in a country out in Europe. I'm not even going to say the name of the country. And they keep bringing him and his brother to jail, claiming that they did some bad things with women. You know who I'm talking about? That guy. His initials are A.T., that guy. I had never paid attention to this guy. I saw his name trending a couple times, and then I saw what people were saying about him. I said, whatever they're saying that he's talking about, I don't care. I'm not interested in that subject, because they were saying he was talking about like relationships and dating. I don't want anybody's advice on relationships and dating. So I never paid attention. But when they all band together and kicked him off, that's when I said, okay, let me go hear what this guy has to say. Because obviously it can't just be about relationships and dating. He can't be that bad. Yeah, I know where he lives. Yeah, it's that guy. I'm not saying the name of the country because TikTok is a little bit sensitive with saying names of countries, except for the United States. Other countries, I've said other countries' names, I got warnings. So I'm not going to say the name of the country. So the whole point is, when they kicked him off, and I saw they kicked him off, that's when I got interested. That's when I got curious. Otherwise, I was ignoring that guy. I got curious about him when they kicked him off, because that's how critical thinkers are. When they see, all right, allegedly this guy's talking about dating and relationships and girls, and they kicked him off all social media, like, what could he possibly be saying that is that incendiary that they all had to kick him off social media? And I realized, oh, that's not the reason they kicked him off. That's not the reason they kicked him off, because he was too influential and he was having too much impact on too many males. That's why they stopped him. Let me stop talking about him before TikTok realizes who I'm talking about and they ban me again. So anyway, let's move on. We're talking about who has won, because MAGA won. All right, Rickshaw, yeah, you can say it in the comments. I don't think they have a live person watching this live here today, because I don't have nearly as many people as I had when they kicked me off. But you got to be careful saying that guy's name. They might take your comment down just because you said it. All right, who else won? Because MAGA won. Number 7, white men. White men, congratulations. All right, you won. Congratulations to heterosexual white men. Let me be clear. Heterosexual white men, you won. Something interesting I noticed about the Kamala Harris campaign, especially on social media. On social media, I noticed that a lot of the males who were, especially black males, a lot of the black male like influencers, you could tell they were influencers and they were paid influencers. Harris campaign spent a lot of money on influencers in this past cycle. Why were so many of the black male influencers who were supporting Kamala Harris, why did they all seem to be gay? Why was this? I couldn't understand this. Why did Kamala Harris just go find a whole bunch of gay black guys to support her? Why didn't she find some straight black guys to support her? I didn't understand it. Anyway, that was a side point. But who won? Because Trump won. White men. Heterosexual white men. You finally get to make a comeback. You finally get to come out of hiding. I know all of you weren't hiding, but you get what I mean. That when it comes to the DEI policies in companies, when it comes to the restrictive hiring and promotion policies that were all made against heterosexual white men. Even if you are not a heterosexual white man, You can't deny that. No, we can't deny that. That all the DEI stuff, all the race hustling stuff, all the stuff about identity politics for the last, I would say the last almost 10 years has all been angled to lessen the impact or lessen the opportunity for heterosexual white men. Again, you can't deny this. That's what it's been. If you are a gay white guy, you can move up. If you are a person of color, you can move up. But if you are a heterosexual white man, you couldn't move up. And the whole concept was based around, well, since heterosexual white men have always run things and they kind of established the country and they did all these things, good or bad, they've always been in charge. And when people say the patriarchy, they're really talking about heterosexual white men. And that's talking about black guys. Talking about heterosexual white men, the quote unquote patriarchy, and this whole need that we need to tear down the patriarchy, quote unquote, tear down the patriarchy was a really bad idea, because if you don't have men in charge of things and you put women in charge, that's going to lead to catastrophe, because women were not created to be in charge. Women were created to be helpmates for men. That's in the Bible. God decreed that, not me. And this whole thing over the last 10 years has been about tearing down the patriarchy and lessening the opportunity and impact of heterosexual white men. Now, because of Trump winning, it's not necessarily because of Trump himself, but Trump winning is a signal that heterosexual white men can come back outside and do what they want to do. And again, the white men who are watching this right now, you were already doing what you wanted to do, but you get the spirit of my point here. And this is something that I said probably back in 2016 and 2017 is around that time period. And this is when the race hustling was really just starting to take off. I said the worst thing you could be in America right now is a heterosexual white man, because you're not going to get a job promotion. You probably won't even get called back for a job interview, because companies have been told, again, this wasn't some random spiritual thing. This was documented. We need to hire more women, more gay people, more T people, and more people of color. All right, we need to do that. In other words, we need to hire more of anything other than heterosexual white men. We need to promote anything other than a heterosexual white man. I said that back in 2016, 2017. It was obvious then. And nowadays, it's kind of slowing down. So 2020 was like the peak of it. But now it's starting to die down. And DEI is starting to die. Identity politics is always going to be a thing. Oh, I thought I got a... What's that called? What do they call that thing on when they give you got to slide it around? Capture on TikTok. All right, all these things are starting to die down. And Donald Trump has already said, he said in the video he put out, I believe it came out yesterday, he was talking about the educational department. I'm going to do a whole live on the Department of Education, because Trump said that he's going to destroy the Department of Education, or basically tear it down and shut it down. I'm going to do a whole live on that on its own. But one of the things that he said was he wanted to provide, his language, restitution for people who had been basically discriminated against based on the policies of universities. Now, what exactly does he mean by that? He did not elaborate. It was only a 2-minute video, but that'll be an interesting thing to see what he ends up doing for that. We'll come back to that later. Let's move on. And I'm going to take questions and comments in a second, by the way. So if you left any, I'll get to those in a minute. I got 3 more that I got to get to. People who won because MAGA won. Number 8. Conservative view holding black men. Black men who hold conservative views won. Now, I personally never considered myself a conservative, never considered myself a liberal. I have no affiliations to any political party or political movement. But a few years ago, I was talking to this guy, and he said, well, Dre, I like your message because like you, I'm like you in that I have these conservative views. And this is the first time I ever heard anybody call my views conservative. I never thought that my views were conservative. I thought I'm just an objective, logical person who doesn't have any political affiliation. But he said as a compliment, like, Dre, you got conservative views, me too. So I'm glad that you put it out there. And I had never even thought of it that way. But these days, people are more open. There's a lot, especially black men. There's a lot of black males who are much more open about their conservative views of the world. And nowadays, because of the way things are, people are getting labeled conservative or labeled liberal based on the things that they say. And people are using them as pejoratives. See, people use MAGA as a pejorative. Oh, you're a MAGA. That means it's like a negative thing. Or you're a Trump supporter. That's a negative thing. You're conservative. That's a negative thing. And people are doing this because people tend to be much more emotional than they are logical. But for conservative view holding black men, this is a win. Why? Because if you looked at the data, according to the exit polls, now these are all based on exit polls. So whenever you see this data that says 80% of this type of person voted for this type of person, that's not official data. It's not official because the government does not keep track of not externally in a way that we can see it. It's like 70% of educated white women voted for Harris or Trump. That's only based on exit polls. An exit poll is simply when someone goes and votes and you exit the polls, there's someone out there who will say, can I ask you a couple questions? Or who'd you vote for? And first of all, they can see the person's a white woman. I voted for Trump. And that goes into the data. And then they get all that data together. And this is how they come up with those numbers. This percentage of these people voted for this person. That is all very unofficial and is unscientific, because I could go vote for Trump. But then when you survey me, when I leave the polls, I could say that I voted for Harris. I could just lie to you. So the data is very unscientific. But that's how to get that data. So any of you ever quotes one of those stats, you have to quote it with an asterisk because you don't know if it's actually true. People could easily lie to you as much as they want. But anyway, in 2008, Barack Obama got 96% of the black vote. That means for every black person who voted, for every 100 black people who voted, 96% of them admitted to or claimed that they voted for Obama. I believe that is true. I believe these exit poll data is generally true. But when it comes to Trump, it's all thrown off because I think there are a lot of people who support him who don't want to admit that they support him. And this year, 2024, for Kamala Harris, her hold on the black vote was in the 70s. I believe it was around 74, 75%, depending on which data that you look at. And it was very high. It was around Obama's numbers for black women. Black women voted for Harris around 96, 97%. That means 97 out of every 100 black women who voted claimed they voted for Harris. But black men, it was much lower. It was around the 70th percentile or maybe 80 percentile. And that's significant. Even though 80% of black men still voted for Harris, that means 20% of them didn't. 20% of them voted for Trump. And again, in 2016, black men were not so willing to admit it if they had. Who knows if they actually did? Because again, these are exit polls. You never really know. But this year, and it is significant what the exit polls say, because that means people are willing to admit that they didn't vote for the black person, even though they're black. Like, I'm black. I voted for Trump. And they're willing to tell you that to your face. In 2016, people were not so willing to say that out loud. They're willing to say it out loud now. Why does that matter? That matters because it means it will become more mainstream and more normal for more black men to come out of the closet, so to speak, and admit that, yes, I support the conservative side. I support the Republican side. I support Trump or whoever the future candidate is going to be. That matters because black people have been voting Democrat by brainwash for the last 60 years. My parents are in their 60s. They've been voting Democrat for their entire lives. My dad said once he voted for a Republican, but for the most part, black people have been taught and trained to vote Democrat their entire lives. Kanye West said there's a whole lot. I should be careful saying his name. I might not be able to say his name. But anyway, I think I got away with it on TikTok. But he said that. All right, why do we always got to vote Democrat? Y'all remember when Kanye did the whole thing? He went to the White House and he was wearing a MAGA hat and all that stuff, and essentially got canceled by the mainstream by supporting Trump. Yeah, I remember all that, right? The whole point of conservative view holding black men, how is this a win? Is because now people who have conservative views, black men, and by the way, black men who are members of the church or any religious group, religion is generally conservative. Just religion itself. If you're part of any religion, a follower of any religion, it tends to lean towards the conservative side. It doesn't matter which religion it is. It tends to lean to the conservative side because there's no religion out there that says go out there and abort your children. There's no religion out there that says be single your entire life. Every religion says man, woman, child, build a family, respect your family, be the head of your household. Those are all conservative views. It doesn't matter what religion it is. Those are conservative views. So the conservative view holding black man now can stand and speak publicly and proudly about where he stands and what he's about, and is okay if it happens to lean Trump because the stigma of being a Trump supporter is slowly disappearing. That's why this is a win for conservative view holding black men. Moving on to point number 9, the winners, and I'm gonna answer all questions and comments in a second after I get through these last two. The winners from the MAGA victory during the 2024 election cycle, those who are wary and untrusting of the government, this is a win. Now, Donald Trump is going to be part of the government. His administration is going to be government as well. But what I believe when it comes to this administration is going to come in January of 2025 is that these folks seem to be more willing to uphold the letter of the law as it was originally intended. I believe that's what they're going to try to do. Now, if they actually do it, is a whole different story. But I believe they're going to try to uphold the letter of the law, which means we have borders, and those borders must be enforced. If you have borders in a country and you're not enforcing the rules of the border, you don't have a country. Just like if you have rules at a business and you don't enforce the rules, then you don't have rules. If no one's enforcing the rules, not a rule. In my building, for example, there's a swimming pool in the building, and there's a bunch of rules that are listed on a sign next to the pool, and people just flout the rules. They just don't follow what the rules say. And I wrote an article about this a couple of years ago because I was living in this building at that time. I said, if you don't enforce the rules, it's not a rule. If you don't enforce the rules, it's not a rule. It's a suggestion. So our border in the United States, based on what the Biden-Harris campaign has chosen to do, has allowed our border to not really be a border. All right. People can just come in and no one is being forced to respect the rules of the border. And if you don't respect the rules of a border, it's not a border. And if your country doesn't have a border, then it's not a country. It's just land. It's just a space. I believe that the Trump administration on that note specifically is really going to get back to enforcing the laws that are on the books. And I believe that they are going to enforce the laws on the books there. I believe that the things that Trump says he's going to do, he's at least going to try. He may not be able to push everything through because he still has to go through Congress to get these things done. And don't think that just because it's Republican held Congress on both sides and a Republican president, that means everything's going to go through. Because you got to remember, there's a lot of Republicans who still don't like Donald Trump. So those Republicans who, quote unquote, control the House and the Senate, some of them don't like Donald Trump. They're not going to go along with everything that he says. So don't think that this is just going to be some easy cakewalk of every single thing that he decides to do is just going to happen like a snap of a finger. That's not going to occur. It's a bunch of people who don't want him to have any success, even though they are all allegedly Republican. So this is what people who follow politics even more closely, they call these people rhinos, R-I-N-O. That stands for Republican in name only. And those people don't like Trump. And he has a lot of enemies on both sides of the aisle. So don't think this is going to be an easy walk for him. But those who are unwary and untrusting of the government, I believe, actually, this one doesn't even have to be a belief. If you just listen to both of them, between Harris and Trump, which one wanted more expansion of the government? I would say it had to be Harris. Kamala Harris is looking to expand government overreach. They're already overreaching. She wanted the government to do more overreaching and have more control and have more say over your life and over what you do. For example, the reproductive freedom thing, she was claiming, she wouldn't have been able to actually do this, but she was claiming in her campaign, she wanted to federalize it all over again. Basically make abortion a federal law that you could have it anywhere that you want. That wasn't going to happen because that would require the Supreme Court overturning a decision that they just overturned 2 years ago. That wasn't going to happen. But she was campaigning on this, which means she was about giving the federal government more power over what you do, which is funny because during the whole, when you heard people talking about Harris and why they were supporting Harris, they were like, well, we don't want the government having to say in what we do with our bodies. Well, that's exactly what she wanted to do. She wanted the government to have a say in that you could do whatever you want with your body, where Trump said, we don't want the federal government involved at all. We're going to let each state individually decide what you can and what you can't do with that life inside of you, which is how it should be said, not what we do with our bodies. Because the woman gets pregnant, it's not about what you do with your body. It's about the life inside of your body that you voluntarily created through a voluntary action called sexual intercourse. That's what it actually should be called. And had I been part of the Trump campaign, I would have said that and articulated it just like I just did. But nobody did that. Luckily, he ended up winning anyway. But the whole point of it is Kamala Harris is a far leftist. From what I've heard, people who study politics, she was as far left as any candidate we have seen ever. Kamala Harris is as far left as anyone you have ever seen in politics. And one of the issues of being far left is that she wants the government to have more control, more reach, and more oversight over as many things as possible. And I talked about that already when I was talking about I did a live called Scary Hours, probably 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And you don't want the government having overreach into your life, even if you think they're doing something that benefits you. You don't want the government to have overreach into your life. Why? Because the government has fumbled every single bag it has had control over. Name anything. Name anything the government controls that they do well. Now, I'm going to take a sip of water. I want y'all to actually read the comment. Name something the government controls that they do well. Name it. And while y'all are thinking and trying to come up with an answer, I'm going to name the things they have control over. So the government has a monopoly on mail. That's called the U.S. Postal Service. Do they do that well? No, because the U.S. Postal Service is losing money. They have a monopoly. They're still losing money. They control education. Does the government handle education well? Are you satisfied with your government mandated education? I'm not. What else do they handle? They handle finances. Government is $35 trillion in debt. They are in control of that. What else are they in control of? And anything that is federalized, government has control over it. They handle things like taxes. Are you happy with the way taxes go? All right. They handle all of these things, and they handle where the money goes. They handle budgets. That's Congress. They handle all the budgets. They vote on the laws. They vote on the bills. They go to the Federal Reserve Bank and get money printed, and this causes inflation. All right. What does the government handle and have control over that they do well? Nobody has left a comment answering that question, so I'm assuming the answer is nothing. Government doesn't do anything well. So why would you vote for a candidate who wants more extended reach of the government over your life? That doesn't make any logical sense. I think if I was talking to even people who are liberal and leftists and Democrats, if I was to explain this to them and ask them the same question, I don't think they could come up with an answer. I think they would generally just experience a little bit of cognitive dissonance, which is when reality conflicts with your belief about reality. And they would just default back to this common saying, which is, well, I'm choosing between her and Trump. I just choose Trump. Or I just want reproductive freedom. I want the rights to do what I want to do with my body. Well, you already exercised that right by getting pregnant. How'd you get pregnant? Was it the Immaculate Conception? Or you did something to become pregnant. Or you already exercised rights over your body. You allowed someone to come into your body, no pun intended, and that's how you got pregnant. What are you talking about? The right to do what I want to do with my body. You just use that right. That's how you got pregnant. So I never understood this concept. And again, when things get broken down logically, they tend to make a lot of sense. But again, I told you, most people are not logical. What's the last point? We're talking here today about the winners from the MAGA outcome, the MAGA results of Trump winning this election. Number 10, the last one, the quote unquote uneducated. This is an interesting term that people use. And they use this, and you hear people using this politically. There was the woman on The View. Her name is Sunny Holston. I think her last name is Holston. Her name is Sunny. And she said, one of the things that she was saying the day after the election on Wednesday, she was saying that, well, this percentage of uneducated white women voted for Trump. That was the exact term that she used, uneducated white women. Now, what does that mean? So when people say uneducated, this is people use it as an official term. Uneducated means women who did not either go to college or didn't graduate college. I don't know what the distinction is, but it's a woman who didn't go to college. Let's just call it that. They call those people uneducated, or uneducated men vote for Trump. So this is what you see. When you see the data, people will throw this out there. And they'll say, well, the most educated states in America all leaned blue, and the most uneducated states in America all leaned red. And if you look at it, again, if you accept this definition of educated versus uneducated to mean going to college, that it is actually true. The states with the most highest percentage of quote unquote educated people, they are all blue states that vote Democrat. And the states with the lowest percentage of quote unquote educated people, they are all red. They all voted for Trump. And people use this, and they use it pejoratively to say, well, the smarter the person is, the more they support the Democrats, and the dumber the person is, the more they support the Republicans. I completely reject this argument. And here's why. And first of all, I'm an quote unquote educated person. I have a college degree. And I live in a state that is red, Florida. But this whole concept of calling someone uneducated because they didn't go to college is a complete misnomer. First of all, because going to school does not make you educated. Going to school does not make you educated. In the United States of America, if you went to school, especially upper education, such as college, you have been indoctrinated. That's what it is. I did a whole live on this like a month ago. If you want to hear it, you can find it on YouTube. Going to college does not mean you are educated. It means you've been indoctrinated. And let's think about it. Let me just explain it to you very simply. How does the education system work in America? You go to school, you sit down in the classroom, they give you a textbook, the teacher talks, you take notes, then they give you a test to prove that you remember what you were told. And the better you do at regurgitating what you were told, the higher grade you get. And you keep getting good grades every year. You keep moving up, matriculating through school, and you keep doing that year after year after year. You end up with a high school diploma, a college degree, maybe even an advanced degree. All you're proving is that you have accepted the information that was given to you and that you can repeat it back. That's all school is in America. They give you information. You prove that you retain the information. You spit it back out to them on a test, and you get good grades. And that allows you to get a degree. That's all. That's the entire education system. I just gave it to you right there. That's not education. That's indoctrination. If you understand the etymology of the word education, the word education etymology, for those who don't know, I'm going to look it up again right now. I know it, but I'm going to look it up so I can give it to you directly as it says. Etymology simply means the roots of a word, where it actually comes from and what it's about. So the root of the word education, it comes from the Latin word, which means child rearing and also the training of animals. But if we go to, let's see, education, let me go into this one. So it comes from the French word. There was a French word, it literally was education. And then there's a Latin word, which was educationem, and it means a rearing or a training. And it means originally instruction in social codes and manners, systematic schooling and training for work from the 1610s. And if you look at the etymology, so they just break the word down like this. So if you're looking at my screen, my phone screen I'm holding up here, they break it down where it all comes from. So the Latin word exducere, it means to lead out. That's what the word education means, to lead out. Now, why is that significant? Because to educate someone, you are not putting in, you are bringing out. So the education system that we have in America does the exact opposite of what the root of the word actually meant. The root of the word education, exducere, means I'm going to help you discover what's already within your mind. I'm just going to help bring it out of you. That's what education originally meant. The education system in America and this Department of Education that Trump is talking about tearing down, and people are acting like this is going to be some kind of tragedy. It's actually not. It's actually a good thing. The education system we have in America is not about pulling anything out of you. It's about putting things into you. You need to accept this. You need to believe in this. You need to be indoctrinated with this. And then I'm going to give you a test in 3 months, and you're going to prove that you remembered everything that I told you. And the better you do that, the higher your grade. You get to go to the next grade, and then eventually you get a degree, and you get to call yourself educated. All right, this is nonsense. Education system in America is complete garbage. And I have a college degree. So you could technically say I'm a success story of the education system, but I like to say that I am a success despite my education, not because of my education. And this is why the uneducated, quote unquote, they're winners based on this MAGA outcome, because they proved that being educated does not necessarily mean you're making a choice that makes sense, at least as far as I'm concerned. And I've broken this down. That's why I've done this live. I've been doing all these lives talking about this stuff for the last 2 months. And I'll continue to talk about it as things advance. I got a lot of things to discuss that we haven't been able to discuss for the last week because I was banned from TikTok. But we're gonna catch up on all of that, all right, as we get through here. So the uneducated. So any of you who considers yourself or has been labeled uneducated because you didn't go to college, all right, you won. All right, you won here because MAGA got a slap in the face with reality that being uneducated doesn't mean you make the wrong decision. And those of you who have college degrees, all right, don't go around touting that you have a degree as if that means you know something. I have a degree, but I don't go around telling people, hey, I have a degree as if that means I have information. All right, except you can enjoy and appreciate what I'm bringing to the table because of the quality of my arguments. All right, judge me based on the arguments that I make. Don't judge me based on that I wrote a book or I did a TED Talk or I have a business or that I went to college. All right, none of those have anything to do with the quality of what I'm saying to you right now. All right, the quality of what I'm saying to you right now is not affected by the fact that or whatever my background is or my background is not. And that's the issue that a lot of educated people have. And I know a lot of highly educated people. When I say highly educated, I mean college degrees and advanced degrees, like master's degrees, doctorate degrees, law degrees. What's the other ones you can have? All of those advanced degrees you get after 4 years. I know a whole bunch of people who have those degrees. And one of the challenges that those people have is that because they put so much of their time, energy, and money into getting those degrees, that everything that they're about has to revolve around the fact that they have that degree. So they have to keep letting you know that they have it, because if they can't use that, then they have nothing else. And see, I don't have that problem. Like, I don't ever have to mention the fact that I have a college degree for my message to be heard, because the value of the message speaks for itself. Whereas someone who has a higher level degree or a degree period, but their entire being, like their career, their job, their social status, their friends, is all based on the fact that they have a degree, well, they have no choice but to keep using it over and over again. This is why you hear people doing this, educated versus uneducated. And I'm assuming this woman, Sunny on The View, I'm assuming she has some type of degree, because otherwise she wouldn't be saying uneducated as if that means these people are doing something wrong. They're using that as a pejorative. Oh, you're uneducated. You're not smart enough. That's the reason why you made the wrong decision. Bullshit. I completely reject that. And again, a lot of these educated people, and some of them whose names I didn't say here today, but I will say them in the future. A lot of these educated people, when I engage with them on social media, I end up getting blocked. They end up blocking me. I've been blocked by a whole bunch of quote unquote educated people on social media, not because I said something wrong, not because I was disrespectful to them, but simply because I'm calling them out on their nonsense, and they can't hold it over my head like, well, I'm more educated than you, because they're not. They just can't make a solid argument to go against mine. And when you just bring people down to the level of logic and objectivity, you find out how much substance they actually have. A lot of these people have no substance. They have that degree. They use that degree to substitute for the substance that they lack. But we'll get to them. Don't worry. We're going to get to everybody's going to be gotten to. All right. Don't worry. Everybody is going to be gotten to through the lives that I do right here. We're going to get to every single person. Everybody's going to be called out. Just like Cat Williams said on the Shannon Sharp podcast, all lies will be exposed. Everybody's going to get exposed. And we're going to call everybody out. But anyway, let me recap what I said, the winners because of the MAGA outcome. And then I'm going to take questions and comments. So number one, the MAGA flag bearers, the people who've been supporting Trump and MAGA even before it was cool. And it's not even cool now. But even when you risked a lot by doing so, salute to you. Number two, the mainstream media. They still get people watching them just so they can bash Trump for the next 4 years. Number three, the race hustlers. The books are coming. The speaking gigs are coming. The consultation fees are coming for the race hustlers. Number four, Beyonce. $10 million for 4 minutes of work. That's $250,000. No, did I say $250,000? I meant to say $2.5 million. I got the math wrong. So maybe I need to be more educated. $2.5 million per minute. All right. Shout out to Beyonce. That's great business. Number five, the feminists. Are they going to do the walk? The feminism walk, I guess, is coming up to protest Trump. What exactly they're protesting, I don't know. Number six, objective and logical creators and journalists. Now, more and more people are going to come to us because they can't go to the mainstream media anymore. Number seven, heterosexual white men. Y'all can finally come out the closet, no pun intended, and be who you want to be. You can finally get a promotion and get a job again. You couldn't get one before. Number eight, conservative view holding black men. All right, conservative views are back in style again because Trump has won 2 out of 3 times, and you question the one that he lost, but we're not going to get into that today. Number nine, those who are wary and untrusting of the government. I believe that the government would have had more overreach had Harris won. It's going to have less with Trump winning. Trump is still the government. He's still going to be part of the government, but less overreach. Number 10, the quote unquote uneducated. All right, you won because Trump won. All that being said, let's see what we got in terms of comments. I'm going to start over on YouTube and Rumble. Randall said Trump is a Zionist. What exactly does that mean? Inverse square, so you mean like Elon Musk. I don't know who you're referring to here. Inverse said, how are you going to say celebrities were a problem versus a Trump and Elon ticket? Well, there were many more celebrities on the Harris side than there were on the Trump side. And Elon's not really a celebrity. He's kind of like a well-known, a well-known entrepreneur. Is he really a celebrity? I don't know. I don't know if I consider Elon Musk a celebrity, just like I don't consider Bill Gates a celebrity. Jeff Bezos is not a celebrity. He's known, but he's not known for like being on TV or entertainment. This is a different type of person. Let's see. Inverse Square was leaving a lot of comments while I was talking, but most of these comments are not worth responding to. I'm not reading all these. All right. Anyway, moving on to Facebook. I don't think we had any on Facebook. LinkedIn, I can't see the comments. So some of these apps, I can't see the comments, or there weren't any comments. I can't always see them. Let's see what we got over on Instagram. Then I'll come over to TikTok last. TikTok tends to have the most commentary, so I'm going to do TikTok last. So let's do Instagram, and then we'll get over to TikTok. And by the way, I do these lives every morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Prudence Parlay, what's going on? Good morning. Prudence said, I've lost every friend. Well, they weren't really your friends. You lost all your friends because what? Because you supported Trump? Man, I don't know how you made those friends in the first place. Let's see. I'm a former Never Trump. Okay, well, a lot of people were. I watched Soul Art New York. Good morning. So I watch the news, but just so I hear what they're saying, I form my own opinions. All right, that's cool. I don't watch them at all. Soul said, race hustles are the worst. Joy Reid. Yes, Joy Reid, another race hustler. Yes, that's a good one. Umar Johnson, yeah, we said. And yes, a couple of them got me blocked. Not all of them got me blocked, but a couple of them do have me blocked. So I don't know how people don't see that they're being hustled. There's never any positive or tangible results because emotion. You can overpower anyone's logic with the right emotion. Every human is susceptible to that. So Art said, never read it. I don't know if I'd be able to stomach such stupidity. You should read it. You should read it because you need to understand how he formulates his argument. It'll help you make better sense of how other people think the same way because he's the one teaching. So yeah, Daily Wire, that's correct. Well, I didn't know he had to pay to talk to her. Well, he didn't have to, but she had a fee if he wanted her time, and he really wanted to use her in his film. So he paid the fee because he wanted to use her in the film because she's one of the leaders of the whole movement. Yeah, Beyonce has conservative values, but she's selling something else to our youth. SMH. Yeah, she probably does. I mean, she's married and she's a mother and she has kids. So I don't know what she's. Well, hey, it's a check. Now Beyonce's a celebrity, so I think she'll take the check. And yeah, her campaign is in debt. We're gonna talk about that. I got a whole album on that. It's coming. Yeah, if I was Beyonce, I'd take the money too. Romo 3005 said, can confirm women's rights is extremely centralized blue cities where the majority of the counties are red. Yes. Well, that's the entire country. Romo, that's the whole country. Whole country is like that. You got a couple blue cities and the rest of the state is red. If you look at the electoral map of the United States, you'll see there's a bunch of blue dots. That's all the big cities that you know about. And then the whole rest of the country is red. Prudence said, Hasty going to sit different now that they're ball. Yeah, I guess so. Prudence I was horrified. They tried to silence a sitting president. But they didn't try. They pretty much succeeded. I got to close IG. Where can I find a pod? Spotify and Apple. It's called Work on Your Game on Spotify or Apple. Fresh Prince of Credit. I don't know what you're asking about. LaVM95 said, I don't agree. With what? So Art said, do you think people are justified in still holding white men accountable for slavery and its continued effects? No, because the white men who were responsible for slavery are all dead. So no, you can't hold that against a white man who's alive today. None of them did it. What I mean by asking is, do you think you should suffer and have a horrible life because of what your grandfather or no? The answer is no. That's a ridiculous premise. Because if you're black and your mother or father was a drug dealer or a criminal, does that mean you should go to jail? How people only want to trace it back to slavery. Well, what about what your parents did? That could apply to any of us. So no, it's a ridiculous premise. But they were able to sell this to a lot of people. Soul said, if you put it that way, no, I wouldn't. But people make compelling arguments that they oppress and are so far behind, it would only be right to hold the oppressors down so we can catch up. No, I don't agree with that concept at all, Soul Art, of holding other people down so you can catch up. Because the whole concept, the thing about life that you need to understand is that life isn't fair. So this whole concept of, well, we need to hold other people down so that everybody else can catch up is a complete bullshit, garbage argument because life is not fair. Our equity is impossible. Our equity will never be achieved where everyone has the same starting point or the same outcome. That will never occur. So if you find yourself behind the 8 ball and other people got a head start on you, then you need to be that much better to catch up. That's just the game. That's the game of life, is that everything is never going to be completely fair and completely equal. So this whole, we should hold white people back so black people can catch up. I want you to understand something. So, I don't know how old you are, but Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was the president in the 1960s, he said that in the 1960s. And that's when the government started giving a whole bunch of handouts to black people in order to do exactly that. It's been 60 years and it's failed. They've been trying for 60 years. It's never worked. So this is not a new concept that people hear about it today and think that it's new. Is not new. And it doesn't work. They've been trying for 60 years. Affirmative action was a try. DEI was a try. Welfare was a try. A whole bunch of programs. The college Pell Grants was a try. All of these were attempts to help black people, quote unquote, catch up. And none of them have worked. Not one. Prudence says, my poppy is the most intelligent man I know. He's a Vietnam vet and the most well-read scholar. All right, that's what's up. So R said, my friend is getting a master's and almost all her work is done by Chat GPT. I know, so I can get a master's now with Chat GPT. If I had to actually do the work, I wouldn't get a master's. But if I could do Chat GPT, yeah, I'd get a master's. Now, I don't know what I would do with it, though. I'm not trying to get a job. Prudence said, I follow you on YouTube. I prefer it over there to the constant nonsense on here. All right, that's what's up. Shout out to people following me on YouTube. Everybody should follow me on YouTube. I got a lot of content on YouTube. Ariel Inspire says, when do they get to the top? When they get to the top, they are going to be held down. Yeah, anybody who gets to the top, yeah, if you want that, then again, it could end up turning on you. So don't cheer for that stuff. Prudence said, you think someone held Obama down because he got to the ultimate top? Well, the ultimate top, that's a different type. That's a different type of top that we're talking about here. But let me see what we got going on TikTok. You got a question or comment on TikTok? Let's see what you got. CC by Sierra, glad to have you back. Thank you. I'm glad to be back. Sean Truth 8, thank you. Appreciate it. Juanita, good to see you. Puma Sheen said, you hustling way too hard for this time of day. This is late. I usually start my lives at 8. I waited till 8:40 because that's the exact time that my TikTok suspension ended. It ended at exactly 8:39. So I had to wait till 8:40 to do this live. So this is actually late for me. Mike said, what size shoes do you wear? You buying me some shoes? I wear a size 13. But in dress shoes, it depends on the shoe. Some dress shoes I wear a size 12. So I got a pair of Prada shoes. I had a size 13. They were too big. I exchanged it for a size 12. 12 fits better. So dress shoes, they tend to run a little bit big. Sometimes small. Depends on the designer. But in sneakers, size 13. Sean True said TikTok is a liberal app. I guess so. Maybe it is. Liesa, good morning. If I'm pronouncing, or Lisa, good morning. Let's see. I'm scrolling through TikTok comments. You got a comment on TikTok. Go ahead and post it right now. I can see everything today. Geek MC Kicks. Thank you. Kimberly said, love your lives. I try to catch you every morning when I'm getting ready for work. Well, I'm glad. But as long as I'm not banned by TikTok or suspended by TikTok, I will be here Monday through Friday, assuming you work Monday through Friday. Bobby said, America has spoken. We want change. Yes, that's correct. I had to agree with that. Joker said, thank you. I lost so much. Rick Shaw says, we have what's called a backbone. We don't back down. Well, I agree with you. I think you're right. The right people, you're right. Aretha said, then you respect stupidity. Who are you referring to, Aretha? Rich Lamar said, would that be the family members that wouldn't invite you over for not getting the V word? I got to be careful saying the V word. I don't know if I can say that over here. I didn't have any family members who did that to me. And if they did, I would have laughed at them and told them they were complete idiots. Nobody in my family did that. Tina said, it definitely does. You see how people get questioned when they wear Harris attire? No, I don't see that, Trina. Harris was the underdog. I don't know about that, Trina. I'm going to have to question that one. I'm going to have to question that assertion. I think Trump was the underdog because, again, of course, you have half the people voting for one side, half the people voting for the other side. That part we agree on. The issue, Trina, is that the mainstream media and most of social media were all supporting Harris and trashing Trump. So based on that alone, I would say Trump was the underdog. Now, because he won, now you could say, well, Harris was the underdog because he lost. But based on the way things were laid out, I would say it was the other way around. Someone with an eyeball says that mindset is flawed because I could just say KKK members are strong for their beliefs. Well, it's not a mindset. It's a point that I made, not a mindset. And I explained exactly what I meant by my point. So in context, what you're saying here is a straw man argument. You're arguing against something that I didn't say. I'm a professional at articulating my points. Michelle said, you should explain that Kamala was lying about changing abortion rights because of existing state control. Well, I did a whole live on it. I did a whole live on why she wouldn't even be able to do it. She was campaigning on it, but she wouldn't be able to do it. But again, most people are not logical. They're emotional. So it sounded good to people, even though there was no logical way she could actually do it. And it almost worked. Let's be clear. It almost worked. MAGA since 2016. Cool. Mainstream media is dead. Almost. It took a hard punch. It just got knocked down. It took a hard punch right now, but doesn't mean it won't get back up. Rick Shaw said Don Jr. has a podcast on Rumble. All right, that's what's up. Gilo Rex, what's going on? Kelly Tyler said there are a large number of us that actually stopped watching television because of Trump's hate speech. Okay, fair enough. That's your right. It wasn't actually trash. It was idiotic talk that came straight from his mouth. Okay, if that's what you believe, and again, a lot of people believe what you're saying here, Kelly. So I'm not here to change your mind. So Kelly says, so your reality is that, this is the question Kelly asked. Your reality is that they're eating the pets. Please answer this, bro. I never mentioned anything about eating pets. And I never said that, nor did I say that it was my quote unquote reality, whatever this means. Kelly, this is a straw man question, and I don't address straw man questions. I point them out as straw man questions, and then we move on. So Rick Shaw says, I watch Dan Bongino only. Yeah, he's a good one too. I don't watch his stuff a lot, but I'm familiar with him. Kelly said, I watched the debate. He said they eating the pets. Well, here's the thing about that, Kelly, is that Trump is a master persuader. And his persuasion worked because you're still talking about it 2 months later. The persuasion just means what sticks in somebody's mind. And the fact you're still talking about it means that it worked. That's how persuasion works. There's a book by Robert Cialdini called Persuasion. If you read it, you'll understand. MILF said, I do check in to see what they're programming folks with. All right, it's fair enough. I get that from social media, but I get people who watch it from TV. Kelly said, don't trust the news. Yeah, I told people 7-8 years ago, stop watching the news. Rick said, go watch the Dan Bongino show. Yeah, I know who he is. MILF said, I see Don Lemon is telling the public that Trump is giving white people reparations. Well, people have taken what he said about the education system because he said restitution to people who were done wrong by these policies. So I get how people are interpreting that as reparations. I get how they're doing it, but this is what they do. And Don Lemon, he's a good example. He used to be on TV. Now he's independent, I guess, but he's still doing the same thing. He doesn't know how to do anything else. So it's going to be interesting watching these people's careers over the next 4 to 15 years and them figuring out what they're going to do, being that they are not getting the mainstream media check anymore, but they don't have any other skills. Bill said we laughed at him when he said fake news, but he was telling the truth. He absolutely was. That was one of the hardest blows that the mainstream media took, is when he created this term fake news and got people to agree with it. Christy Swain, what's going on? Good morning. Rick said clips and sound bites helps any election. Well, it helps anything. It helps any idea because most people don't give the time to get the full context. They just take whatever they can get briefly. Kelly said, I'm leaving his page because my comment only gives him TikTok tokens. You talking about me? You give a fuck about your TikTok tokens? Milkshake said, I like that one. Race hustler. Yeah, the race hustler. I did a whole episode on my show about race hustlers. Joy Reid. Yeah, Joy Reid is a race hustler. Yes, she is. I think Joy Reid is going to get the same thing that Don Lemon got. She's going to be out of a job and she's going to keep doing the same thing, but do it independently. It's a business. So sad they had to bring people's skin color into it. Well, that's part of the business, Rick. That's the business. Yeah, I got to watch the Matt. I haven't seen the Matt Walsh doc yet either, but I will watch it. Lisa says she didn't win in my book. Didn't like her myself. Who are you talking about? Lisa said that is a win. Yeah, 2.5 million a minute. That's right. Rick Shaw said Newsom wrecked that state. I appreciate you, Lisa. Let's see. Milkshake says, I'm nosy. You kept telling me to stop looking. I'm want to look. All right. Mother said, son, the truth will come to light eventually. That's right. Truth eventually comes to light. Yes, that guy in that country with the bald head. I can't say his name. I said his name before and they penalized me, so I'm not going to say his name. But y'all know who I'm talking about. Rick said, the more we comment, the more audience rate we'll get. I had a much bigger audience last week. It might be, who knows? We'll see over the next couple of days as I continue to go live, because it could be because the election is over and people have calmed down. It could be that I don't think they suppressed me, because when I first started live, it was like 200 people in here. So it might just depend on the topic. We'll see as I keep talking. We'll see what happens. Not over yet, but Kamala Cook behind the scenes, she a prosecutor first. No, it's over. Yuki is over. I get what you're saying, but no, it's over. Kamala ain't cooking nothing. It's over. So let's see. Mia Mo, I don't know how to pronounce her name. Meaux. That's why she lost. The things that had some out of her mouth prior to being a candidate is all the proof you need. Yes, and she kind of didn't back off of those things, so it kind of made people question, like, what are you actually about? That was the challenge with her, with Kamala, is that she was talking out of both sides of her mouth, and it confused people. Us uneducated ones is own the business. So smart on paper doesn't mean you're smart. That's correct. Lisa, you're right about that. Experience is being educated. You need experience to learn and be educated. Well, the whole concept of education has been misconstrued in America. I don't even like using the word educated. I don't even like to call myself educated. I'd rather call myself intelligent. Intelligence means you know your stuff, you know what you're talking about. Educated means somebody gave you some information, which doesn't mean you know anything. I tell people you don't really know it until you have done it, and you don't truly know it until you can teach it. And that has nothing to do with education. That's just your ability to, your experience, as you said, and then your ability to give that experience to somebody else. Chris said, doesn't mean they have common sense. That's true. The issue with common sense is that it's a very subjective term. So people tend to say people have common sense when you agree with them, and when you disagree with someone, you say they don't have common sense. So I don't even like using that term because it's too subjective. It's too opinion based. Babrushka says, I have 5 college degrees, including my doctorate. All it means is I'm good at jumping through hoops. Babrushka, how'd you get 5 college degrees? How long did that take? Milkshake, what are my views on crypto? I would put some money into it. I would put something into crypto. Maybe not everything if you're not all the way in on it, but I will put something into it, because if it becomes something, you want to at least have a position. That's my view on crypto. I've been live for 90 minutes according to TikTok. Rick Shaw said, why not cowboy boots? I'm not a cowboy. Crystal said, what were you talking about? I need to read. I mentioned a bunch of things you need to read. You should read all the Race Hustlers books. So read Ibram X. Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. Read Robin DiAngelo's book, White Fragility. Read both of those books. I don't agree with either of the books, but you should read them anyway, so you understand why they're saying what they're saying. Shay Patrice said, Marco Rubio. What about him? Baruska said, all my life. How long was your life? How old are you? 5 college. I never heard anybody having 5 college degrees. That's a lot of degrees. Prudence says, thought on the current buzz, read Joe stepping his side and that's not going to happen. No, that's not going to happen. Well, Joe Biden got pushed out of his nomination and Kamala took his spot. No way he's going to step aside and give up his last 2 months of being president after they already pushed him out of his nomination. He could have ran the campaign they just did and lost just like Kamala did. So he got pushed out for nothing. Kamala didn't win, so they would end up with the same outcome. So no, Joe Biden ain't stepping aside for Kamala Harris. If he did that, that would be ridiculous. They would have to force him. I don't think they're going to force his hand twice. They got 2 months and it's over. That's what I would say. Babuski said 55. Well, congratulations on your 5 college degrees. So, ladies and gentlemen, I do these lives Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. We are going to talk a little bit more of the fallout and the future. The fallout from this election. Let me see what I got here. So I got to do the ones about all the people who lost based on going against Trump. I got a whole list of them. I'll probably do that one tomorrow. We're going to talk about the Department of Education. We're going to talk about the red pill when it comes to MAGA. We're going to talk about this whole thing Trump is saying about the cops and full immunity, allegedly. We're going to talk about what the left needs to learn based on the mistakes of this outcome. The mistakes and the outcome. The blame game amongst Kamala fans. We're going to talk about exactly why Trump won. We're going to talk about Project 2025. We're going to talk about Trump derangement syndrome, which is a thing. We're going to talk about Make America Healthy Again, which Robert F. Kennedy is claiming that he's going to do, amongst other things. These are all the things I got on tap right now, pending any other current events and future development. These are all the things I already know I'm going to be talking about. So again, 8 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday is when I do these lives. So today I started a little bit later because I had to wait for my TikTok suspension to end, but it's over now, at least for today. And I will see you all tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern. Make sure you're following me on other apps. Whichever app you're following me on now, make sure you follow me on the other one. So I'm on YouTube, Rumble, X, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Is that everybody? I think I said all of them. So I'm on all of those apps. If you're on TikTok, make sure you follow me somewhere other than TikTok. Click the link in my bio and you'll see my Instagram. You'll see my YouTube. Follow me on both of those places just in case anything happens to my TikTok. You can find me on other places. If you're on Instagram, follow me on TikTok. If you're on YouTube, make sure you follow me on IG and on TikTok. And everybody, make sure you go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where our focus is. That's where you can join my coaching programs, my group programs. You can work with me one-on-one as well while we still have that available. That's where it's all going down. Everybody have a great Wednesday. Work on your game. We will see y'all tomorrow.